Welcome to Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today, friends, we have another exciting guest in our podcast from one of our favorite parties on the podcast, the Libertarian Party. She's with the Kansas Libertarian Party, and she's running for an office which she's going to tell us about in a second. Her name is Olivia Hayse. So welcome to the podcast, Olivia.
Hey, Andrew. Thank you so much for having me. I'm happy to be here.
We're glad to have you. If we could get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief biographical sketch, and also the specific office you're running for.
Yes. Okay. So, as you said, my name is Olivia Hayse. I'm a published author, blogger, and podcast host myself. My background is in digital marketing, and I also have a lot of experience through the marketing realm working with nonprofits, event planning, and photography. I currently live in Derby, Kansas, where I homeschool and homestead with my husband and our 2 boys. And I am running for Kansas State Senate District 30.
Oh, wow. Okay. It sounds like your background and your current activities are aligned with what somebody who's a libertarian would be.
Oh, yeah, definitely. One of my proudest endorsements that I've gotten so far is from the Libertarian Booster Pack. They rank like how libertarian candidates are, right, just based on like lifestyle and opinion and everything, and I got a 99% on that. So it's funny when I meet people that think I'm leaning one way or the other. I'm like, no, I'm a pretty libertarian. And of course, with like just homesteading and homeschool and being self-sufficient, it definitely plays into that for sure.
Wow. So I haven't heard of that organization. What is it called? The Distribute Pack, you said?
It's the Libertarian Booster Pack.
Okay.
And yeah, and all they do, they have a website. I can't remember what it is, but I've got my computer in front of me. But yeah, they basically, I'm not sure. I might have maybe heard of them before at conventions and stuff, but they emailed a survey, that is just basically ranking you 0 to 100%, like how libertarian you are, how,
wow.
well you represent libertarian values. So yeah, that was one of my, favorite survey, endorsement results to get back was at 99%.
Yes, yeah, it's hard to beat 99%.
Yeah.
Also, your marketing background sounds very suitable for a political candidate.
Yes, I have worked on a lot of political campaigns. I was actually the state marketing director for the Libertarian Party of Kansas from 2020 to 2024. So I redid our website, I grew our social media, I grew our newsletter list, and then I've worked on like our governor campaign, and even before being with LPKS, I worked on a lot of different campaigns as my job. And so it's been cool because it's my first time being the candidate. So there's a lot of things that, are different when you're the face of the campaign. But also with my digital marketing background, I'm able to save this campaign so much money because I do a lot of the design work. I'm able to place my own ads. So yeah, it definitely is convenient to have that knowledge and that background.
Yes, that sounds like good fiscal responsibility that you can carry over to an elected position.
Oh my gosh, definitely. Yes.
So what led you to the Libertarian Party in the first place?
Good question. So I would say I've been a registered libertarian since Gary Johnson's campaign in 2016. That's what originally brought me to the party. And I was living back in Texas at the time. I never really engaged with the Libertarian Party of Texas, but I was registered libertarian. And I remember looking at the candidates' websites at the time, and all the hot button topic issues. It was like, how do you feel about abortion or cannabis or, same-sex marriage. And, of course, all the other candidates had how they felt you should feel and vote. And Gary's website for every single thing was like, that's not the role of the government to tell you what to do. Just over and over that response. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want. So I jumped into the party in 2016. And then once I moved to Kansas in 2020, I had signed up to help with Joe Jorgensen's campaign. I really liked her and Spike, and I still to this day, Joe is such an inspiration and friend to me. And so I jumped in to help with their bus tour that they went on, and they stopped Spike stopped in Wichita. And at that rally, I met the chair of the LP at that time, or of the LPKS at that time. And so they very quickly they were like, hey, do you have any digital marketing experience? We could really use help with that. And I was just like, okay, this is meant to be because that's exactly what I do. So yeah, that's how I got started. And I was a delegate both in 2022, so in Reno, and then again just this past year I was a delegate to national in DC.
Sounds good. Wow. So kindly describe the demographics of the district you're running for. Is it rural, urban? Is it red, blue? Is it racially diverse? Kindly describe that for our audience. We'd appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. Okay, so I'm in Kansas, so it is pretty conservative. I will tell you that we have been living under a veto-proof Republican supermajority since 1993.
Oh no.
So there are a lot of people that are very, very tired of the Republicans just basically running the show unchecked for so long. There's a lot of people that are just very tired of the two-party system. And then where I live specifically, my district is a little bit of Wichita, so that's our biggest city, but then it's mostly smaller communities like suburbs and rural communities like where I live out in the country. And I can tell you that there is something, I mean, we were the first state to vote on the abortion measure. And we were also, Wichita is the first city to have, well, not the first city, but in Kansas at least, we have technically a libertarian mayor in Wichita. She's not very libertarian, but on paper she definitely is, and she has definitely helped. There's just such a momentum in this area that I've watched over the past several years where it's like people are interested in other options, interested in other parties, and we're the strongest third party here. We do have two other parties that were established this year in Kansas. But yeah, there's just this momentum around people just being tired of the duopoly. So I figured what better time to run.
So is the other party the Green Party and the Constitution Party, or what are they?
No, surprisingly not. So the other two parties, which I think this is really exciting, that in a calendar year we had two parties go through the process to like become minor parties. So we have United Kansas and the No Labels Party. But I would love to see either you mentioned Constitution or Green. I would actually love to see them come here. I know a lot of folks that really do identify with the Green Party. They're not on the ballot. They're not really present in Kansas. And so I would love for them to organize and get fully recognized. I'm just here for all the options. I want us to have several options.
Oh, yes. Yep. That's in line with what we're about in the podcast. We want views all over the spectrum, whether we agree with them or not. We want them on the ballot.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay. So for your race, what are some of the big issues? What is your platform for the race?
Yeah, okay, so my platform is small government, local control, personal freedom, and non-aggression. So I can tell you that my main issues that are my priorities should I get elected, first and foremost, legalizing cannabis. We are one of two states that do not even have a medical program. And really, I've jumped over medical cannabis where I'm actually working with groups that would like to see all plant medicines, normalized. I'm working with a group that's really focusing on like psilocybin because the VA is now using that as a treatment for extreme PTSD. And there's just no reason at this stage, there's just no reason for us not to have it. So first and foremost is legalizing cannabis. And then my second goal is protecting women's rights. We had, like I said, we were the first state to vote on whether or not we were going to allow abortions. And, nobody could have predicted that what was going to happen with Roe was going to happen when it did. And we already had it on the ballot to vote for. And then that happened. And so it's kind of like all eyes were on us. So I worked a lot on that campaign. And I mean, Trump still in his most recent, I think it was the most recent debate, got all mentioned Kansas for like really messing up his plans on that, because people even that didn't agree with that specific procedure were like, no, we should not be making this call for other people. We should not be getting the government involved. So just continuing, the Republicans have continued to try to chip away at women's rights. And so just maintaining that freedom. Then the other big type of things that are going on here in Kansas is they talk a lot about taxes. They talk a lot about lowering our taxes and this and that and these little patches and these little breaks that they want to give. Obviously, as libertarian, I would like to see the tax code heavily, heavily reformed, if not disappear. But one thing that I'm pushing for is I went to a event where they were telling us all about just the different stats about Kansas, right? And Kansas is one of the states that's losing people hand over fist. I mean, hundreds of thousands of people are leaving Kansas every year. And I noticed that the states that they're going to, I noticed, all have one thing in common, and that is no income tax. Now, I moved here
Oh,
from
wow.
Texas. You live in Texas, so you know how big of a deal that is.
Yep.
So I'm going to hopefully be able to introduce. I found out through talking with friends that are legislators and past legislators that no one has ever had a conversation or introduced a bill about abolishing income tax. And I just think it's funny because they want to give these little breaks here and there. And I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm all for any tax break, but why not just not take our income to begin with, right? So I would love to see about getting that conversation going. So yeah, tax breaks are big. And then really just access to services. I mean, out in the rural communities, they are suffering with not even having doctors that are there, not even having mental health services in schools. Everyone's really concerned about Medicaid, and as a libertarian, I don't want necessarily to see Medicaid, beefed up, but I also don't want to see our older folks in the rural communities and our vets, not have access to the care that they need. So I think those are the top issues right now, and I think those are going to be the issues that we're going to see coming up in the next legislative session.
Okay, that sounds good. So related to that is your vision for the office. So what do you see the role of a candidate, specifically a libertarian candidate, in the position? How do they interact with their constituents, and what would you do as elected representative if you were the only libertarian in the body?
Yes, that's a great question. And I would be, if I am able to win this election, I would be the first libertarian senator. So in Kansas. So it would be record breaking. So, that's one thing I'm telling people is you have a chance to be a part of history here, so the way that I explain to people what it would look like having a libertarian in the Senate, I explain it to them like this. Basically what we have right now is we have a legislature that is like the Super Bowl. They've made it your team wins or your team loses, and that's how it is. And that is not how a government should be functioning. We should not be winner takes all. We should be meeting in the middle and coming up with compromises. I know that it's hard, and I know that the two parties are so polarized, but I've learned knocking doors and walking the campaign trail, most citizens are not on the two extremes of most of these issues. Most citizens are somewhere in the middle. And so I'm hoping as a third party person that I can kind of get in there and mediate, or just at least have to facilitate more productive conversations, especially around cannabis. There are the people that think it's the devil's lettuce, and there are people that are dying because their conditions are so bad, right? And there's just no meeting in the middle. So, I don't care how long it takes us. I think it's our job to find those compromises. And I think that I always tell folks from both parties that I might have similar goals as both of you, but I have a very different way that I want to accomplish those goals. So I'm hoping that with everybody being so frustrated by the powers that be, that now would be a good time for me to introduce some very creative solutions. Not groundbreaking solutions as far as libertarian goes, all stuff we've heard of before, but would probably be very new to, long-term Republicans and Democrats.
Sure. You were mentioning the issue of marijuana, and that makes me wonder, where do you think the people's opposition to marijuana comes from? Do you think it's religious stuff? Religion seems to deal with more alcohol and things like that, not so much marijuana, but is it partially religious that people object to marijuana, or what's the main drive that they're objected to, that you have to overcome?
Oh gosh. That's a really good question. Honestly, if I'm honest with you, so they're throwing everything at the wall. I've heard the religious thing, I've heard the health thing, I heard in a hearing last year that if we start planting all this cannabis, that China is going to come and buy it and lace it and kill our children with cannabis. They are ridiculous. That's what it is. They're ridiculous. They're throwing everything at the wall. And really what it comes down to, I was told years ago, so maybe closer to 3 years ago, when we were fighting over cannabis in legislative session, I was told, well, they are all about their bottom line, and the agricultural powers that be here in Kansas do not want to share the ag money with cannabis. And that their plan was to stall the cannabis industry as long as they could, so that their people could be first to market, your Cokes and your big name people. And I gotta tell you, I took that with a grain of salt. That was literally just State House gossip. But then this year, we had, we of course, I'm an advisor with the Kansas Cannabis Coalition, and we had a bill that we were backing, that we wanted to see passed. There was another bill out of nowhere that was presented, and it was going to be something like 4 cannabis growers and like a few dispensaries all throughout the state. And of course, it was in a region of the state where we know there's big money, right? And so when I was looking at that bill and I was looking at who passed it, it was really hard. We called it the monopoly bill because it would have established a monopoly on cannabis. And, you know, I really believe in my gut that description, that reason I was given years ago is the truth, that it really comes down to them wanting to make sure that the billions of dollars, because it is in the billions of dollars that would come to our state with a legal cannabis industry, they just wanted to make sure it was going to the right people.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's insightful.
Yeah, it's convoluted, man.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, so what's your strategy for reaching the voters? It sounds like with your marketing background, you can use a lot of that to reach the voters. So how are you planning to reach the voters in your area?
Yeah, okay, so my strategy has been from the very beginning to focus on the smaller rural communities, and then also focusing on the unheard and unrepresented, like marginalized groups, right? So
Okay.
I've been, like I said, focusing on the smaller towns around me. I did a lot of stuff with going to, you know, pride events, and I'm really plugged in with like the immigrant community here in town. I'm a second generation Mexican-American immigrant, and so I can really speak to these. These are groups of people that have existed in Kansas for a long time but have had no representation. And I tell you, I think the strategy works because I knocked on a door out in this small town south of me when I was door knocking one time, and this guy answered, and he said, "Whatever you're running for, you got my vote." And I was like, "Okay, well, you don't know anything about my platform. Like, you know, do you have any questions? You know?" And he said, it doesn't matter because I've lived out here my entire life, and a representative, an elected official has never knocked on my door.
Wow.
And so I really think when you put together, so the gal that I'm running against, she only won by 3% last time in a two-way race. And so that's something like 1,100 votes. And I really think, you know, when you start looking at the smaller communities, the rural communities, the, you know, pride groups, the cannabis groups, the immigrant groups, when you start putting those together, that's a pretty decent number. You know, so we'll see on November 5th. But yeah, that's been my strategy, is focusing on, you know, I'm not going to go into this parts of Wichita where I know that, you know, the incumbent lives, I know the median income there, and I know the makeup there. So I'm just not even wasting my time competing on that level. I'm going to the places where they've never thought to campaign before. So we'll see. And then as far as like how to reach them, oh my gosh, we've done everything, like you said, with my digital marketing background. I tried to really make sure that I didn't lean too heavily on digital. So, of course, I'm on Facebook, and I've got, you know, social media, but I've also, we've done door knocking. We've done every parade, every forum, every, you know, in-person event. We're also looking at a text message campaign that's going to be coming out. I've got like 5,000, 10,000 text messages going out next week. And then I've got 2 mailers, one specifically to ours and one specifically to Dems that I'm looking at mailing out. So I've tried to make sure that we are doing all the things, all the traditional media, the new media. So yeah, we've, if we lose, it will not be because we didn't try all the things.
Good. Yeah, it sounds like a balanced, comprehensive approach to campaigning.
Yeah.
Excellent. And also, it sounds good that you're building those coalitions. That's key.
Yeah, definitely. You know, something that happened this week was I got the endorsement from Planned Parenthood, and Planned Parenthood they don't typically choose more than one person in a race, and they don't typically endorse outside the Democratic Party, right? So it was a pretty big deal that I got that. And I had people asking me, like, you know, and I also got an endorsement from the Cannabis Justice Coalition, which is like a brand new coalition put together. And I had people asking me, like, you know, as a third party person, like, how did you pull those things off? And I told them it's nothing that I could have done this month or last month. Those endorsements came to me because of the work that I did 2 years ago, the work that I did last session. Like, those endorsements came to me because I've already had those relationships, and I've already been, like, whether or not I'm running for office, the issues that I fight for remain the same. right? If I lose on November 6th, I am still fighting for cannabis and women's rights, right?
Yes.
So it's really nice to see that these partnerships, these coalitions, these investments of time that I made in the past are coming to show when I really need it. So that's been exciting.
Yeah, it sounds like you're leveraging the networking, like Harvey McKay said. You want to build your well before you're thirsty.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love the way you described that.
Wonderful. So, in regards to the ballot access, did your party already have that, or did you have to jump through those hoops?
Nope. So we have ballot access. So the way that we do it in Kansas is our state convention is considered our primary. So we
Okay.
vote on all of our candidates at our convention, and then after convention, our state chair and our secretary go and file all of the names at the state house together.
Okay, so you didn't have to worry too much. That's good.
Nope. Yeah. It's pretty straightforward. And then as far as like maintaining ballot access, I'll tell you that like here in Kansas, we were pretty nervous because, we're supposed to maintain 1%, right, on a statewide race. And this happens to be a year where we don't have any statewide races. And so
Oh, wow.
we were really nervous that it was going to all come down to maintaining 1%. And maintaining 1% on a year when it's just Republican, Dem, Libertarian is really not that hard for us. But, you know, we've got RFK on the ballot, even though he's not technically running, we do still have him on the ballot in Kansas. And so we were pretty nervous for most of this year that it was all going to come down to this presidential election and getting that 1%. But the Secretary of State did issue a ruling just a few months ago that said that no minor parties are going to lose status this year, that it pretty much we all get to maintain this year, and it will be probably in 26, like when we have the governor race, like that will be like our deciding race. So we definitely breathed a sigh of relief when we got that decision from the Secretary of State, because we were pretty nervous, and it was just basically a loophole in the way they wrote out how minor parties maintain in Kansas, where this just happened to be kind of a weird year where we didn't have statewide races. So yeah, we are breathing a sigh of relief, at least for a couple years, as far as maintaining ballot access.
All right. Yeah, that's good. That's good that you got that ruling. From what I hear, that those are not always the most common things, so it's good they gave you something you can work with.
Yeah, and I have to say, we kind of went back and forth on, like, do we ask them to clarify, or is that drawing too much attention to it, you know? So it wasn't actually us that reached out. I think it might have been one of the other parties that filed, because the way that the press release came out was it said, like, here are the parties that are affected by this, and it listed all three of us minor parties. So yeah, we were just glad, and maybe the Secretary of State just did it because there's two new parties, you know? But yeah, we were very happy to have otherwise we were just going to kind of leave it up to the Secretary of State's interpretation. So we were glad that we didn't have to have a guessing game, that they said it for us. So.
Sounds good. So you were talking about your one opponent that you said lives in the more of the upper crust type of area.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's a Republican, right?
Yes. So my main opponent is the incumbent Republican senator.
Okay. So if I may ask, are the Democrats fielding a candidate?
Yes. So there is a Democrat in the race, but I will tell you that, oh man, let's see, what can I say on this? So at the beginning of my race, when I first declared in March, there was a Democrat that was going to run, and he decided to pull out. And so I was told by local Democrat leadership, I was told that they were not going to run anyone against me. And then last minute, like literally on filing day, someone filed. And it was, you know, the way I found out was I fundraised under the impression that it was going to be a two-way race. And so I had a donor call me that morning and be like, oh my gosh, it's a three-way race. That changes everything, you know? So I will tell you, I've met the Democrat, and he is a nice guy, but he just started campaigning like a couple weeks ago. I've been doing this for over a year. I've been campaigning this month for a year solid. And, you know, we were at a forum together the other day, and he told the audience that this was just kind of his like retirement little project. And that's not what it is for me. It's not a retirement project for me. It's not fun and games. It's trying to make Kansas a place that the people that I love feel safe, right? And so I will tell you that I do have a lot of Democrat support behind the scenes, and even there are some that are willing to share on behalf of me, even over their party. And I will say that the Democrats and even some Republicans, but what I'm seeing right now is I'm seeing the people that really care about breaking that supermajority, the people that really care about the causes and the principles, they are willing to work outside of their party to accomplish a shared goal. And it's really kind of separating the men from the boys right now. So,
wow.
So yeah, it really feels like some days anything can happen. I know people have spoken to his own party members have spoken to him about dropping. I don't think he's going to, but those conversations are happening. So I don't know. There could be some news in the coming weeks. Everyone's gonna have to keep an eye out and see what happens, or there could not be, because that's politics. Sometimes deals come and they go. But yeah, it is very interesting.
Okay, sounds good. So Olivia, how can our audience support you in your campaign?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Good question. Okay. So I hate to be this person, right? Nobody likes being this person, but the best way to help me is to give me money, is to donate to my campaign. We are like 5 weeks away. And like I said, I've got, 10,000 text messages I want to send. I've got 2 separate mailers that I want to send. And I can afford to do those things right now, but I will be able to send them to more people if I have a little bit more money. So I did a pretty good job raising funds throughout the campaign, and recently my state party, which I do want to make sure I give credit where credit is due, the state party matched my donations.
Wow.
So I'm doing good, but I could always use a little bit more of one, even like a $5-10 donation. That could be the difference of one extra postcard or one extra mailer that gets to go into a mailbox. So yeah, on my website, which is just oliviahayse.com. So that's Hayse. And then the longer form, hayesforsenate.wordpress.com, because sometimes that other domain is tricky or whatever. But, and I'm sure you can share that with the episode, but on the homepage of my website is a link to give to my PayPal. And that would super help me just get over the hump and try to reach as many last minute voters as I could.
Sounds great. So Olivia, we thank you for coming on the podcast today and talking about your campaign. It sounds like you got a good campaign going.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for just spending time with me today. And then, just everything you do to help prop up like alternate options and alternate parties. I mean, I am all for it. I would love to see, more states follow suit and even more parties established in Kansas. And I think what we've seen this year is with, the third party candidates, they're debating better. They're sounding better. And it's just time to really embrace that. And if they're not going to invite us to their stage, we have our own mediums and our own ways of getting ideas out there, and you're a part of that. So I thank you so much.
Of course. All right, Olivia, we wish you all the best in your campaign and everything else you do in your personal and professional life.
Thank you so much. You as well.
Take care. Bye now.
All right. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.